Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Hey, welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, you hear me say this all the time, but leave me that 5-star rating and review, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to Vikram Raya. Vikram is an expert in helping high-performing doctors just like those who want to live more fulfilling lives and experience limitless success on every level. Now, he is an award-winning cardiologist, a multi-millionaire real estate investor, an athlete and fitness expert, a functional medicine specialist, and a serial entrepreneur. Let's welcome to the show, Vikram Raya.
Hey, John. Great. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, Vikram. It's great to talk to you. We've known each other for a few years now, but for our listeners who are not as familiar with you, why don't you give us a little bit more background?
Yeah, absolutely, John. Super excited to be on the podcast. Congratulations on the success and congratulations on multifamily.
Thank you.
So a little bit about myself. I call myself a recovering cardiologist, so my background is in medicine. That was my whole goal growing up. I was first doctor in my family. I sort of stumbled upon entrepreneurship accidentally. I started like this medical staffing business while I was in training in cardiology. And then I knew that I wanted to earn money outside of medicine. And so, I tried options trading. I got my butt handed to me. Then I tried single family homes, and that was good, but it was a lot of tenants and a lot of toilets. And I couldn't scale. And while I was practicing cardiology, I stumbled upon multifamily, and that's when the light bulb really hit. And, in 2015, I started my multifamily investing company, Viking Capital, with my partner and friend, Ravi Gupta. And, we've scaled it to where, in 2018, I was able to retire from medicine completely. I'm doing a lot of other side projects, but now, we're at about 3,000 doors, about $330 million of real estate, and no looking back.
Man, that is awesome to hear, man. And, going from your dream of being a cardiologist to now you've built this $330 million real estate portfolio. I mean, that's the dream for a lot of people. I mean, you talk about success. You succeeded in life as a doctor, transition into building kind of passive income through real estate, ultimately getting a multifamily, building this huge portfolio. I got to say, you talked about transitioning out of probably one of the most revered, positions that someone could hold, not just in the United States, but across the globe. What drove that decision to, focus on investing and actually retire from medicine?
Yeah, when I was practicing medicine, John, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And I went in it because I really wanted to help people. And in fact, I had people in my own family. I had 6 people in my family who died of heart attacks. So it was truly important for me to lock in and understand the science of this. In fact, my father collapsed in front of me when I was in my first year of cardiology training, and I was like, man, I really want to help people never have to deal with this again. And not only did I focus on cardiology, but I started focusing on prevention and proactive cardiology, and I actually trained in something called functional medicine. And as I advanced in my real estate career and my real estate income, I knew I wanted to practice medicine my way. So I did say I retired from cardiology, but I didn't retire from medicine. I actually opened up my own health optimization institute called the Vitology Institute in Northern Virginia. And now we've slowly become more of a virtual clinic where we take care of people all over the country. And this has been a passion for me, but it takes balls, it takes guts, it takes cojones to leave the insurance model, to leave the tried and true, a pill for an ill model, to go and help people not only treat their illnesses, but to prevent and reverse disease. And now I'm slowly going onto the cusp of biohacking. And now I'm helping doctors, high performers all over the country, not only go from not being sick to being stable or okay, but to being well and to being a high achiever, high performer. And here's my quote for the day. Radical self-care leads to exponential growth in life. And when I mean radical self-care, it's not, hey, look, I'm exercising 2 days a week and I eat pretty well and, I don't have too much belly fat, to like, hey, I'm, taking these supplements and I'm, using the Oura Ring to track my sleep patterns, and I have infrared sauna to, decrease my anti-aging, and I'm lifting certain static weight contractions so I can explode my muscle growth, so I can buy more real estate and dominate my market.
Yeah, Vic, I mean, a lot of people may not get that connection. I mean, you're talking about wellness, right, and health in the body, and there's a connection between health and wealth. And maybe you can just talk a little bit more about that for someone who's listening to this because they're interested in, being a real estate investor or growing kind of their current portfolio, getting that financial independence, financial freedom. Why is the health side? You talked about radical self-care. Why is that so important to help drive that wealth?
Yeah, John, that's a great question. It's a great insight. And your listeners, they're smart people. They're focused. They obviously love multifamily real estate. And they're here because they're like, all right, just give me the details on real estate. Tell me which markets to buy in. What's the marketing app you're using? What's the trick with the brokers? Yes, all of that is super important. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't even delve into that and learn to master some of it. But what I learned from my coaches and mentors has been this: create this strong, stable foundation. And on this foundation, you'll have tons more energy. You'll be able to operate with less sleep. You'll be able to give your best, and you can perform at a 10 out of 10, not in the morning, but also in the evening. And if I'm able to crush it like this, then even if I do a full day of real estate, I can still give some left over to my family, and they're not getting any less of me. And this allows you to be successful for a longer period of time. You have sustainability. And I would say sustainability is a key to long-term real estate success. There's a lot of people who rise up in the real estate world, but they flame out. Divorce, poor relationships, poor business practices, not a strong enough foundation in their business or their company. But by creating this strong foundational health and wealth, you're able to explode. And, I really believe in what I call the 5 freedoms, John. The 5 freedoms are obviously financial freedom. We're all going after it. But what is financial freedom if you don't have time freedom? What is financial freedom if you don't have geographic freedom, being able to work from anywhere in the world? Or a vitality freedom, to have not only be disease free, but to be full of vitality, or to have mindset freedom, to be bulletproof and unshakable and resilient. So by getting all these 5 freedoms, John, you become unstoppable. And that's my goal for your listeners and for, I think, all successful real estate investors.
Talk about the 5 freedoms: financial, time, geographic, vitality, and mindset. Excellent tips there and excellent points, just to make sure it's not solely about the money, it's about the other aspects. And what I'm taking away from what you said is, while you set out to be a cardiologist, you realized there was a bit of a larger purpose, a bigger opportunity to make an impact and have that freedom that you're looking for. No matter how successful you are as a cardiologist, that still requires you to be in a specific location for a specific amount of hours. And as you are now in this world where you're focusing more on wellness, both financially and from a wealth standpoint, as well as with the health and vitality, you have more flexibility and freedom in all of these freedoms, the 5 freedoms that you just talked about. I want to go back a little bit for someone who is where you were back in 2015. They've realized, hey, multifamily investing is the vehicle I want to use to create my pathway towards these 5 freedoms. Go back to 2015. What are some of the key things you learned or you did to get started that a listener can incorporate into what they're doing today to kind of make that leap or get that traction they're looking for that first deal?
Yeah, John, if I told you in 2015, hey, look, man, I'm going to buy, this much real estate, or achieve this kind of things, I'd be like, you're crazy. There's no way. Look, like my first deal in 2012 was a $26,000 single family home. So my mind didn't even have the capability to comprehend or process that it is possible for an average person to buy a 100-unit property. It just didn't exist. And it was exposure. It was knowledge. It was going to boot camps. It was going to mentorships. It was reading a ton of books. And it was like just sort of letting that wash over my brain cells and seeing, hey, is it possible? And then meeting people who actually done it. And were they smarter than me, or were they were they blessed with some kind of multifamily genetics? No, it was just they figured out a pathway. And all success it comes from pathways and mentorship. So figure out the pathway, figure out the mentorship, and then take freaking massive action. And fall down, fail, get back up again, fall down, fail, get back up again. And it's that consistent action that has served me well. Getting to cardiology wasn't easy, and I had to work my tail off. I was not necessarily the smartest person in the batch, but I was definitely the hardest working. And same thing with anything I've tried to achieve in my life. And so I just took multifamily as such, same thing. And like I got scammed in multifamily when I was trying to raise capital, John, where I bought an accredited investor list off the internet. And have some of the names were like Mr. Green and Mr. White. and they're like, wire the funds here and we'll give you, we just need some proof of funds from your end, and then we'll wire the rest to you. And like, I lost like a couple of $1,000s doing this stupid stuff, right? But this is the kind of stuff that most people would be like, oh, this is not for me, I'm done. But I laugh it off. I wrote it off as a tax write-off, as theft or whatever, and loss. And then, I just needed to figure it out. And so I didn't, could I have avoided some of those mistakes? Yes. But, I like to make a lot of small mistakes so I can make some huge, big wins, and I think that's part of the process. So going back to your question, 2015, I knew it was possible. I met with some mentorships. I read the books, and I wanted to take my first step. So the safe way, if any of your listeners are working a full-time W-2, what they need to do is do the nights and weekends thing, or the early mornings and weekends thing, right? And spend an hour or two every day working on their side hustle. And when their side hustle starts becoming their main hustles, when you start weeding off your day job. So I went from 5 days a week as a cardiologist to 4 days a week to 3 days a week. And then I felt comfortable and confident, hey, it's time. And so that's one thing. Number two, JV partner. I joint ventured on my first 3 multifamily deals where I brought capital to other people's projects, and I was on the membership on the general partnership team. And that way, I was getting paid to learn in a way. And I felt comfortable with that. And then finally, you have to just at some point, you have to draw the line and take that first massive step. So me and my partner decided, hey, you know what? No more being Robin. We want to be Batman. And so we said, let's go after that first deal, 118 unit deal. But are things easy, John? No, we were best and final in that deal. We lost that deal. And so we walked away, but we made a good impression on the broker. Something happened. And what happened was there was a murder on the property, John. And this is sometimes what happens. And then we had the moment of truth. The initial group from New York said, hey, this is too crazy for us. We're out. Me and my partner said, hey, look, we looked at the crime statistics. We looked at everything. We found that this is more of a freak incident versus a chronic problem. And we're like, you know what? We trust our property management company. We trust our management skills, and we trust the police department, everything else there. I don't think this is a random event. Let's go for it. So because they whipped out, we went in. It took some faith and courage, but now that deal gave us close to $5 million of profit as we sold it 3 years later.
That's awesome, man. It's great to hear that too. And I think too, like, even that example helps to provide some clarity, right? Because you mentioned it, everyone is faced with that opportunity to take massive action, pull the trigger, do a deal, and it's scary. You're looking at stuff, and that New York group, they saw that and said, hey, you know what? This is more than we feel comfortable doing. You guys did more research, stepped up, decided to move forward. And I think that's one of the big things that people don't talk about. It's easy to listen to a show like this and hear all these success stories. I mean, I mentioned your $330 million portfolio, but that first deal is usually difficult, right? There's usually something that is problematic for for people getting in, right? And there's a challenge somewhere to get solved. And once you can do that first deal, get that momentum going, now you start to build, the opportunity to see, maybe more profitable deals or deals that, have even more meat on the bone for you. But that first deal is really important to get started. And I think for you to take that first deal, do it, have success with it, now that begins that snowball effect to continue to build and grow your portfolio. Vic, I want to talk about kind of where you're at and where you're doing deals, right? You mentioned kind of the DC, Maryland area, Virginia area, I believe, for your practice. Where are you located and where are your deals currently?
So, John, I'm glad you asked me that question because we've come a long way. What I've learned is this, like in cardiology, I was focused on the heart. And then in functional medicine, I was focused on, sort of reversing stuff. Now in real estate, I was like all over the place initially, right? We're doing, we started doing a single family, then we moved to the multifamily, but then people are coming to me with like self-storage. We would actually underwrite it. We didn't know how to, but we were doing it. They were telling us about mobile home parks. We're like, oh, that sounds exciting. We actually were going to invest in a CBD project when that was really hot about 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And I have actually invested in a hemp farm just because a buddy of mine thought it was a good project. So these are the things, we're like all over the place, right? And then, but we were just still doing multifamily, and we're doing, we have deals in Austin, we have deals in Dallas, we have deals in Atlanta, and now we just bought a deal in Washington, D.C. And it's a condo conversion. But now I've just, COVID, I call the great reset, the great reflection, the introspection. And so I just like, what am I about? What am I for? What am I going to move forward doing? And so, everyone says everyone has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. That's what, Mike Tyson says. So, Tyson, Tyson did get hit in the mouth, but the COVID hit us in the mouth pretty bad. And we were like, we're in the middle of a raise for DC when that hit, and we're like, oh my God, can we finish the raise? And, we ended up pulling through, and we had no problems actually once things got started. But, these are the things that sort of make you think. And I was being pulled in this clinic, and I was being pulled with, I have the blessing of being able to coach doctors in high performance. I have coaching doctors in real estate. And I was also doing the multifamily thing. I was like, man, all this is sort of all over the place. What am I about? So first I got integrated myself in alignment. And my thing was, I want to help people in health, wealth, and mindset. So that's really what it was. So as I became CEO of Viking Capital, I'm like, this is going to be my major engine. And as an offshoot, if people want to learn how I do it, I can teach them with my company called Viking University. And then if people want to learn about high performance, that's essentially what I'd use to make myself successful in all these things. So that's pretty easy. That's another offshoot of what I'm already doing. And then I've converted my clinic now into more of a digital media company, so it doesn't take so much of my time. And that's people learning how to optimize themselves, with a little bit of assistance on my end. So now I'm like, all right, where do I want to take Viking Capital? And where we want to take it is I want to dominate one market, and I want to dominate one asset class. So now we've become the company that buys B plus properties in B areas in the the top submarkets in Atlanta, 250 units and above. And that's it. That's all we do. So by me saying no to everything else, I can say yes to our greatest growth potential. And because I said that, we did that, our next deal just came within a couple of weeks of me making that decision. It was Marabella Place, the biggest deal we've ever done, where it's a 360 unit, $53 million deal. And we were able to raise $10 million in a week.
Oh man, that's impressive, man. That's amazing. Congratulations on being able to pull that together so quickly.
Thanks, man. Yeah. The total raise is about 20, but yeah, 10 million in a week. And it was strong work. And we went from 506B, which is the SEC indicator for friends and family, to 506C. So now we're, sort of doing more of a crowdfunding model. And I think it was one of the best moves. And I know your your podcast details with these kind of key insights, and so I'm happy to explore all of that with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to make sure everyone's following the conversation, right? You talked about really looking at all sorts of investment opportunities from hemp farms to, self-storage, mobile home, from, Texas to Georgia to DC. If there was a deal and the numbers look good, you would consider it. And you went from that model to really stepping back to say, hey, what's my core? What are my core values? What are the core strengths that I bring to the table? What is Viking Capital going to represent? And how do I create the offshoots accordingly for that? From that realization, that clarity, you decided to focus on Class B assets and up in the Atlanta submarkets, 250 units and up. And that specificity really allowed you to drill in, because now you can look at a deal and say, hey, does this fit our criteria or not? And before you even bother underwriting or doing anything else, you know the answer. Either it fits your criteria and now it's just a numbers game, or it doesn't and it's not worth your time to even look at. And from getting that clarity, you're able to spend more time being efficient, looking for the right opportunities that you know are going to be fruitful for not just you and your team, but for your investors. And that's a really great way to grow. You mentioned 506B versus 506C. And I think you did a good job of just explaining it for those who are not as familiar with the SEC. If you are going to be raising money for a deal with passive investors, one of the two exclusions you can use is 506B, which allows you to raise money with sophisticated investors who may not be accredited, only up to 35 non-accredited investors in that deal. And then 506C, you can only work with accredited investors, but the benefit of that is you can broaden it out. You can actually advertise, you can market, you can do a lot more to go out and find accredited investors. So really great tools there. Let me ask you this: with that 506B, moving from 506B to moving to 506C, what was the thought process in that change, and what advantage are you trying to take advantage of to move from 506B to 506C?
Yeah, great question, John. So, we were at 506B. We've done 13 deals prior using all that same model, that same business structure. And I was like, this was our comfort zone. But to step out of that comfort into discomfort, again, the top players that John interviews, the top players that, who are listening on this call, you got to spend at least 43% of your time in discomfort to be one of the greats. And that's been my consistent aim. A good book to marinate in this concept is You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which I hope all of you have read. If not, please read or listen to. The audio is phenomenal. And if you listen to it, wait a couple of months and listen to it again. So again, I'm throwing that percentage out because I really believe it's a high percentage. You want to live in a little bit of discomfort. If you're not doing one thing that you're sort of scared about every week, you're too comfortable. And comfort kills growth. Comfort kills progress. And progress equals happiness. So back to what I was saying. So we went from 563B to 563C, where there's more requirements on our end to verify each individual investor. We have to actually physically verify them by the SEC rules. However, now the world is my oyster. I can now just broaden and get more investors in. For every one investor I lose because of the extra paperwork, I'll probably gain 3 because obscurity was my main problem. If you're not raising enough capital, if you're not doing enough deals, guys, there's the 2 big problems are relationships and obscurity. You need to blow up. You need to broadcast. You need to become more than. You need to give value and education so that they can learn about you, and then you can have partnerships and relationships. So now we're doing that. And, being on John's podcast has been very helpful. Being on other people's podcasts helpful. Maybe one day starting my own podcast will be helpful, but giving webinars, education, tons of that. And so now I went from 800 investors on our list now to 2,000. And our next goal is to get to 5,000 investors. And eventually by end of next year is 10,000 investors.
That's amazing. And that's what it is, right? I mean, you move from 506B to 506C to broaden your reach, because now you don't have to wait and establish these relationships. You can just reach out to the masses and let people identify whether or not they're accredited. And if they are, now they can join your list and review the opportunities. Not to mention, they're going to have more capital I mean, if they're accredited, they're going to have more money sitting around. They're going to have $1 million or so in the bank. So when you have deals, they can continue to invest in the deals that you're putting in front of them, as opposed to some folks who can only invest in one deal every other year or so. So just keep in mind these strategies, and I think that it does take a little bit of experience. I wouldn't come out of the gate and do 506C if you have no track record at all, or at least without the ability to give people comfort that you know what you're doing. And that helps if you can surround yourself with the right team. I want to go back to the market real quick. You mentioned Atlanta. You said the Atlanta submarkets. Why Atlanta? I mean, you're based in, more of that Maryland, Virginia area. There's a lot of opportunities there. Why did you decide Atlanta was the market you wanted to focus on?
ATL, Hot Atlanta, home of the busiest airport. I grew up in Atlanta from high school onward, so I have a personal connection there. But more than that, this is a top growth market. I would say Dallas, Atlanta, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, Charlotte, Phoenix. These are strong growth markets where, regardless of pandemic or economic cycles, you're able to generate year-over-year growth, rent growth, income growth. There's net migration. That's one of the statistics that everyone needs to look at, positive net migration. People are flooding out of New York, out of San Francisco, and into these kind of markets. And there's a reason for that. So I wanted a diversified economy, diversified employer base, and I wanted boots on the ground there. So initially with my dad, he was our boots on the ground. And then we're recently bringing on a partner who's going to join us in Viking, and he lives there. And so it's so easy now. Like if you don't have a person in the city where you're trying to do deals in, that's tough, because when they ask you to do a property tour and you don't show up in person, it doesn't look that great. And if you just keep sending your property management company, they're like, is this guy even serious? Or this girl even serious? So having boots on the ground is super important, and also gives reassurance to your investors when you're trying to invest in that market. So I like Atlanta for all those reasons. I think it's a growth market even for years to come. And also it's a landlord-friendly state versus a tenant-friendly state.
No, great tips there. And those are the things that we hear consistently. So, you mentioned two of the things that people should do if they want to get started. They should look for mentorships, and they should look for the pathway. What you just said, Vikram, was really the pathway of finding the right market. You mentioned that it's a landlord-friendly state, that it's growing. Looking at the net migration pattern, so how many people are moving into the city versus moving out, you see that it's growing. You're looking at the jobs. The jobs are growing. The industries are diversified. It's got a huge airport, kind of the biggest airport, I believe, in the country. So you have a lot of things there that are going to drive growth, not to mention big, huge companies, Home Depot, Coca-Cola. I mean, major corporations that are going to be stable and located there that will continue to serve that community. So lots of things to like about that area. And when you're looking at your market, make sure there's a strong story to tell that's going to get you excited, but also get your investors excited. Lastly, you talked about boots on the ground, making sure that you have the people there who can actually oversee the deal, see what's going on, be kind of the extension of you and your team, and really be a part of your team when you're looking at deals and opportunities, because it's helpful to have that person who's local just to provide additional local market knowledge and be present anytime you need it. Last thing before we get to our bullseye round, as you talked about boots on the ground and making sure that you're having that representation for the brokers, you kind of jokingly alluded to, how do you get that traction with the broker? What tips or advice do you have there? I mean, for someone who's looking to actually break through and get that pocket listing with the broker, at least to, build that credibility with the broker, what's a tip or something they can do to stand out?
I'll tell you a story. So we were at a period of time where we had gotten some deals, but then there was I think it was this last year. So the end of 2019, and we were still, we need at least one more deal to close out the year strong. And we're sort of struggling, and we haven't had a big deal in a while. We had done a small deal. And then, so we're like, all right. So I flew into Atlanta, and then I asked my dad to pick me up from the airport. And I said, hey dad, can you go to the package store and can you pick up something for me? He's like, okay. And so he arrived and he gave me the package. I'm like, all right, great. So then I borrowed his car and I met with the top 5 brokers in Atlanta. And I met with each of them and I had a quick, 20-minute little lunch / coffee. And at the end of it, I whipped out my package and I gave it to them. And it was basically, it was a bottle of Dom Perignon. And I said, "Hey, here's to celebrating our future deals together." And I gave 5 Doms that day. So what it cost me, a couple of thousand at most. And within a week, I had 20 deals in my inbox. Half of them were off market. And we ended up closing on one of those within a month.
Man, what a powerful tip that is. I mean, find a way to stand out. And we talk about adding value, to someone else. And, if there's a way to provide a gift and use that as a means to stand out in a prospect's mind or a broker's mind, that's a phenomenal way to do that. So great tip there. And I hope everyone runs out and grabs some bottles of Dom P and goes ahead and tries to recreate that in your own market, man. That's a powerful tip there. Let's move on to our bullseye round. You ready?
Absolutely.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
COVID, man. COVID, again, stalled my real estate company, got my functional medicine company on the rocks, stressed me out immeasurably. And I was like, man, is this the end? But it was actually just the beginning. Everything got in alignment, streamlined things, integrated things, and had the clarity. Life is either a hell yes or a hell no. If anything's moving me toward the 5 freedoms, go for it. If not, let it go.
Love it, man. Love it. All right. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Okay. Digital resources, Asana, ASANA, project management tool, free for under, I think, 15 team members. This is how we run a real estate company.
All right. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Yes. It's changed. It used to be The One Thing, then used to be You Can't Hurt Me, and now it's Naval Ravikant's The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, NavalRavikant. This book is going to blow your mind. It has these one-liners, two-liners, small little tweets or paragraphs that will just, it's like intellectual, dopamine. And so definitely it's a book I've been giving away a lot.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
My workouts, 5 days a week, sometimes 7. And then I used to do meditation, but now I have a new form of meditation called Nucalm, Nucalm. It is meditation tech that the Blackhawks use, major NLB players, MMA fighters, and it literally drops you into this really relaxed parasympathetic state that can reset your autonomic nervous system and help you take down $50 million deals without sweating.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
You need to implement traction, EOS, into your business as soon as you hit the 4 to 5 employee mark.
What are you curious about right now?
I'm curious about how much more I can push myself, my family, my friends, my companies, and have more impact on the world.
All right, we've talked about where you're at. Give me the best place to grab a bite to eat.
I still like my favorite place, True Food Kitchen.
True Food Kitchen, good. Love it, man. Well, listen, this has been a lot of, enlightening information. And I really just like the way you talked about the 5 freedoms, right? And thinking about how everything is really interconnected. It's not just about financial freedom and getting enough money to quit your job. It's really about trying to strive for the 5 freedoms for time, financial, geographic vitality and mindset. That way you really have the lifestyle that you can shape and have the flexibility to create whatever it is that you want to do. For folks who want to learn a little bit more about Viking Capital, some of the investment opportunities you have, or any of your other programs, what's the best way to get in touch?
Sure. I have 2 websites, vikramraya.com It's a good place for just everything about me. And then otherwise, if you want to go on Viking Capital's website, that's a really powerful website. VikingCapLLC.com. That's VIKING Cap CAP LLC.com.
Vikram, thank you again for coming on Target Market Insights, the multifamily marketing show. Hope to see you again soon in person, hopefully. But we will certainly stay in touch. Hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, John. Stay strong.